Dr. Paparo. You are, for the past 30 years, you've helped business professionals, students, and athletes, and everyday people overcome the ravages of stress on their health and performance. Boy, I can definitely say we can relate to that. Dr. Paparo empowers his clients to take responsibility for their own stress and provides them with the tools not only to perform at their potential, but to put themselves in the zone almost at will. They learn what it takes to perform at their peak and develop the skills necessary to achieve the level of excellence necessary to succeed in their careers and life in general. Well, welcome. Right.
Thank you for coming tonight and allowing me to share my passion with you. As you can see from my profile, I've spent the last 40 plus years in education. I spent the first 17 years teaching with the Milwaukee Public Schools, and the last 25 plus years working with, as Nicole said, students, business leaders, athletes, and everyday people, helping them overcome the ravages of stress on their health, life, and performance. I started with athletes and golfers, but quickly realized that the same tools that I was using to help them perform at peak performance worked in every area of life. So I started working with people in all areas of life. I used the simple formula, performance equals potential minus interference. Eliminate the interference, and you perform to your potential, and in many cases, well beyond that. The two greatest sources of interference are fear of failure and the fears that life won't live up to your expectations, hopes, and dreams. Fear leads to stress. Now, stress is costing businesses over $300 billion a year in lost productivity, health insurance, injury, and sick leave. So it has a major impact on the business community, and this is why. Because I am using this incorrectly. Well, I have to tell you, this could have been a very stressful night for me, since tonight is my wedding anniversary. Fortunately, I have a very helpful wife who's here with me tonight. Why is stress so expensive? It's because it's implicated in every single major chronic disease. 75 to 90% of all doctor visits are related to stress. 1 in 2 Americans is either taking anti-anxiety medication or anti-depressant medication. 300 million prescriptions for these medications are written annually. And I've given you a list of the different diseases that are all related to stress. Sources of stress: home, work, out in the community, and unfortunately, it's not isolated. We take our stress with us. So if we experience stress at home, it comes with us to work. If we experience it at work, we take it home with us. We take it out into the community with us. Anybody here ever experience any stress? Yeah. How about this week? Anybody experience stress this week? Yeah. Does it make you angry? Do you get frustrated? Do you ever feel demoralized, okay, by the stress that's going on in your life because you feel that you can't control your own destiny? We've all been there, but it doesn't have to be that way. See, it's not the stress that's the problem. It's our reactions to stress. That's how we typically react. Our nerves get jangled, our mind is rattled with everything but what we want to focus on. It's not a very happy situation. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to explain why stress affects you the way it does, and then provide you with some very simple, powerful techniques that can turn stress off instantly. not only turn stress off, but put you into the peak performance frame of mind, okay? And you're gonna learn to turn it off just like that. You're gonna turn your peak performance on just like that. Nobody teaches you this because it's much more profitable to sell you a pill. I prescribe skills, not pills, to help you overcome the effects of stress in your health, performance, and life. I've done it with athletes, and I've done it with business professionals. I had one business professional. He was a young professional, and he just received a promotion, but he had to move his family from North Carolina to St. Louis. Now, he had never lived away from his family, so he was taking his wife and 2 young children with him to St. Louis. When he got there, he realized that he was on his own, and that created panic for him. He started having panic attacks. Unfortunately, they sent him to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist gave him anti-anxiety medication. The anti-anxiety medication made him a zombie. He couldn't perform. So he got a temporary disability, but the problem again was that if he was on the medication, he was a zombie. If he wasn't on the medication, he was in state of panic. So he thought the best thing to do would be to pick up his family and move him back to North Carolina. Only when he got back to North Carolina, they told him, you've got 30 days, otherwise you have to get back to St. Louis, because we don't have a job for you here anymore. So the day they were supposed to leave, his wife called me, and I had helped her with test anxiety a number of years earlier. They were actually neighbors of mine, and she said, we're supposed to leave today, and Scott's in a panic. He is just completely traumatized. He can't do anything. So I just made my way over. I was saying, what's going on? Are you okay? I thought you were supposed to be leaving today. We started talking. Well, within 30 minutes, and I took him through the tools that I used, I asked him, I said, how are you feeling now? I said, are you panicked now? He says, no, I feel fine now. And he said, well, what happens if I get panicked on the drive out there? Because he had to drive the moving truck. Okay? So I said, well, your wife knows how to use these tools. You pull over to the side of the road, have her go through it with you, and then when you're ready, you can move on again. He had to stop twice, pull over, got to St. Louis, and never had another panic attack. That's how powerful these tools are. So, this is what happens when we become stressed out. We feel threatened, okay? Now, it doesn't make any difference whether the threat is to our life or the threat is to the way we want life to be, our expectations of how we want life to be. The same thing happens to us. Our nervous system goes into fight or flight mode, releasing powerful chemicals into your bloodstream that do 2 things. Number 1, it activates your survival instincts. And 2, it turns off everything that's not involved in your survival. Okay, so what happens? Number 1, the couple of things that it deactivates are your immune system and your digestive system. Well, why do you think we have health problems? Most of us are in a state of hypertension. We're constantly stressing ourselves out, whether we're in a stressful situation, thinking about it, talking about it, or worrying about it. We're reliving that trauma. Okay, and when we relive that trauma, all those chemicals are being constantly released into our body, and it turns off our immune system. So if you have an injury or you have an illness, you're not healing from it. It also turns off your digestive system. What happens if you had a plate of food and you put it out on the table and forgot it, you left the house for 3 days, what would happen when you came back? Your house would be pretty stinky from the rotting food. Well, guess what happens in your stomach? Exactly the same thing. The food is not digested, it rots in your stomach, it turns into those same fouly gases, and when that happens, it seeps through into the rest of your organs, it seeps out of your digestive system, into your bloodstream, into your organs, and it makes it toxic. It's what is called leaky gut syndrome. This is why long-term unresolved stress is so damaging to our health, okay? So, here's some other things that happens. It alters your visual processing. Well, if you're in fight or flight, what's going to happen? If a saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, or somebody you hear a gunshot off in the distance, what do? Okay, you immediately go into fight or flight, It changes your visual processing. It dilates the pupils in your eyes, widens your peripheral vision, and starts your eyes moving back and forth. Why? Because you need to see what's going on out here. Because that's where the danger is. You need to see your whole visual field. Now, this information is in the subconscious. You're not aware of all the visual information that is now being downloaded into your brain at this unconscious level. Even though you're not aware of the information, it clouds your ability to think because it's processing huge amounts of information. Okay? The next thing that happens is it changes your breathing pattern. Well, we start to hold our breath, we breathe faster, we breathe shallower, okay? We're getting less oxygen to the brain when we do that. Now, the brain possesses 3% of our body mass, yet it uses 25% of available oxygen. Okay? So if our breathing pattern reduces the amount of oxygen that we're taking in, the brain has less oxygen to use to process all the information. Makes the brain less effective. The other thing that happens when we go into fight or flight is oxygen is redirected, this is energy, redirected from all of our organs and our brain to our extremities to make us stronger and faster so that we can take action against whatever the threat is. Now, as I said, it doesn't make any difference whether the threat is real or if it's a modern day stress. Okay? So exactly the same things happen. Our nervous system hasn't evolved since the time we came out of caves. Okay? So the brain is less effective also because of that. It deactivates your thought and your emotional control centers. You know that the brain has two hemispheres, okay? Right and left. They each have their own function. And they're connected by a group of nerves that it's called the corpus callosum. Okay? It turns that off. You don't need to control your emotions if you're running for your life. Okay? You just have to get out of there. It also inhibits access to memory centers not necessary for survival. So, again, if your life is being threatened, you don't need to remember facts or figures. Your brain shuts it down. Why? Because if you're trying to process that information, you're not responding to the threat as quickly as you can, and that compromises your survival. So in its infinite wisdom, our nervous system shuts down access to all memories. Okay? It also shuts down our higher brain functions. You don't need to be creative. You don't need to be able to do business and conduct meetings if your life is being threatened. Okay? So again, it shuts it down. The more intense the stress, or the longer you've experienced stress, the more complete the shutdown is. This is what happens to us under stress. Okay? So, knowing that, what do we have to do in order to get back to our normal functioning? Number one, we've got to get rid of those chemicals that our nervous system just released into our bloodstream, the adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, and aldosterone, okay? Because those are the things that are contaminating our body. Long-term, our body doesn't naturally get rid of those chemicals when the stress is over quickly, okay? It dissipates very slowly. And since we're constantly reliving the stress through our thoughts and our worries and talking about it, we're constantly releasing more of those chemicals into the body. Okay? I've used up 20 minutes already?
We started late, so you're good. You're
Okay. So we have to get rid of the chemicals, number one. Number two, we have to reactivate all those centers that we used for, that we're using on a normal daily basis. And we have to change the energy in the body. I developed a very simple routine that helps you do all of that, and with practice you can do it this fast, okay? Now, first thing we have to do is stop our fight or flight, okay? And we have to start doing something different. So, I've got two things that my clients use. Number one is a don't worry wristband. Red is very important. If we go through some training, I will tell you why. And or they use this stop worrying stop sign, okay? You're welcome to take one of these if you like. Start passing that out, okay? The next thing you want to do is close your eyes. Why? Because your brain is downloading a lot of visual information. So if you close your eyes, you're restricting that information from getting to the brain. Okay? It allows the pupils to constrict back to their normal. It's and narrowing your peripheral vision, and it's keeping your eyes from moving all over. Okay? 2, you want to transform your breathing. Remember I told you that your breath becomes shallow, fast, and irregular. The main reasons of holding your breath. Okay? We need to change that breathing. What happens when our ancestors were running or fighting for their life? When they were done, what did they do? You might have to breathe like that when you get out of, if you've just been to the gym or out for a run. I do it when I have to climb the stairs, okay? So you breathe deep, you breathe shallow. So we're gonna go through this I'm gonna teach you how to breathe for performance. So we're going to inhale to the count of 4, we'll hold for a second or 2, and then we are going to exhale to the count of 8. Okay, so let's do that. Inhale, slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. Now release, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Basically, you want to deflate a balloon. You want to get rid of all of those gases that have formed in your body, carbon dioxide, lactic acid. Those gases can come off the breath. The breath can actually get rid of 90% of stress hormones. Okay? So next thing you want to do is relax your body. We don't have time tonight to go through that, but I would take you through a relaxation training. And in doing that, we're going to do 2 things with it. Number 1, where you're going to learn to relax your body, and number 2, you're going to pair it with a word. Okay? So if I was relaxing my brow, a lot of times the brow becomes furrowed when we get stressed out. So you relax it, rub across your eyebrows gently, just to feel the stress relief, and you say relax. Because eventually you can say relax and it happens naturally. You don't have to go through the process. I would take you through an entire training that would relax the whole body. Each of us experiences tension in a different part of the body. Okay? Smile. Okay? Stress relieves. Stress causes tension and causes us to grit our teeth, frown, whatever. Okay? Now, when I usually tell my clients to smile, they go, "What are you, nuts? How can I smile when I'm frustrated? How can I smile when I'm angry?" But here's the thing: it doesn't matter whether you have something to smile about or not. The mere physical act of raising the ends of your mouth up releases endorphins into your body to relax it, to send you back into your normal state of being, which is rest and digest. Okay? So, smiling, whether you have something to smile about or not, actually is a stress relief technique. Now, if you don't have anything to smile about, I'm going to give you something to smile about. Okay? When my son was a little kid, he loved watching He-Man and Masters of the Universe. He would wrap a towel around his neck, take a sword, and run around the house. "I have the power! I have the power! I have the power!" And I would do it with him. And then I recognized after he was done, I'm going, I really feel good doing this. It changed my whole energy. Okay? Everybody here smiled as soon as I said that. Okay? Now, you can't go around yelling, "I have the power," as you're going into an executive board meeting, right? Or in the mall. People are going to think you're nuts. So, our imagination is very powerful. Most of the times we use it against it because we imagine all the bad things that can happen to us. And that creates stress. We're now going to use our imagination to work for us. All you got to remember is what it would feel like if you were actually doing this. And your body will create that same sensation as if you were actually doing it. Okay? Or you can just remember this fat old bald-haired guy sitting up here yelling and yelling, "I have the power." I do this with students in high school, and at first they don't want to do it, and then I tell them just to use your imagination of imagining me do it, and they start laughing and they start doing it with me. Another thing we're going to do is quiet our eyes. Very quickly. Okay? Three things that we're gonna do with this one simple technique is we are going to quiet our eyes, bring our attention back to center, and we are going to activate our memories and higher cognitive functions. Now, I learned this through brain gym. This is a figure 8. If we turn it on its side, it's a lazy 8. Okay? Now, taking your finger, and I have golfers do this, okay? And going up, we always start in the center and we go up. We trace it and we follow, tracing it around the 8, all the way around one side, and then with the other finger, we're gonna do it the other way, okay? Now, what does this do? Number one, it connects left and right hemisphere of the brain. Why? We know that the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, right? But the reverse process also works. So if I cross over my right to my left, I'm activating the left side of my brain. If I cross over left to right, the right side of my brain is activated. So I'm connecting left and right hemispheres by moving across my midline, okay? By starting here and going up, I'm moving my attention from bottom of my brain to the top of my brain. If to function and peak performance, we need access to our entire brain, left and right, and top to bottom, subconscious, unconscious, and conscious, okay? So by moving from upwards to start this, we're moving the energy up in our brain to get access to our higher cognitive functions. I don't have time to tell you about all the science that goes into this. It's called Brain Gym, you can look it up. It's an incredible technique. Again, you can't be doing that in a board meeting, right? So you can actually do it through your imagination. If you imagine that that lazy 8 starts in the bridge of your nose and extends outward around each eye, and move your attention up and around one eye, down to the bottom, up around. You don't have to use your finger, but just imagine your attention moving around the sockets of your eyes, okay? If you close your eyes and do it, you can actually feel your eyes moving in the socket, left, right, up, and down, okay? Now, those are simple techniques. It took about 10 minutes for me to go through that. In training, it would take quite a bit longer because I go through a lot more explanation. But if you do this a couple of times over the next couple of days, you would be able to complete that entire routine in about 30 to 60 seconds. That's not long to get rid of stress. Now, my athletes have to get rid of stress like that fast, okay? So they were willing to do it 15 to 20 times a day. Now, it only takes 30 to 60 seconds. So the amount of training is about 30 minutes to an hour a day, done over a period of time. I ask people to do it when they go to bed at night, except leave out the He-Man technique. But in the morning, do it when you wake up. I don't need coffee, I just have to yell, I've got the power and I'm ready to go, okay? So if you do this every day for about 21 to 30 days, you'll be able to complete the entire routine in the time it takes to take one slow, deep breath, because you'll be doing all of those things at the same time. Now, if you continue practicing like my athletes do, you can actually turn it off that fast. Why? Anybody here ever hear of Ivan Pavlov? Okay, behavioralist, okay? He was able to get dogs to bark at the ringing of a bell, or salivate at the ringing of a bell, right? I don't want you to salivate, I want your body to go from stress to peak performance that fast. If you do it for 30 to 60 days, you will basically condition yourself to go into a state of peak performance anytime that you experience a stressful situation. And all I do when I practice is I'll snap my fingers, and that's once I'm in a state of peak performance, snap my fingers when I'm done, and that snapping of my fingers are done. Yes, that's all I have to do, and my body immediately goes into that state of peak performance. because Ivan Pavlov, was able to figure out that that's what happens. All you have to do is condition yourself to respond a specific way, and you change the structures, functions, and chemistry of your brain to match whatever you trained it to do. Okay? So, that's my presentation. I've got some information for you here, if you can, this is, what I do. And then I do personal coaching, speaking, and group training. And if you're interested, I've got in the back, I don't use paper business cards anymore, I use a virtual business card. So everything, including my website, is on that virtual business card. If after this is over, you wanna give me your email or phone number, I will text you or email you with my virtual business card so that you can not only see my business card, you can also get access to my website and information about it. One question I can take.
Don't you have a Udemy course that has
Yeah.
all this very, like,
Yeah.
I heard it's absolutely amazing.
You can also go on Udemy, and I also have the course on Udemy. So, I want to thank you.